the Friends of Chamber Music, their Performance in Context series. I'm Andrea Cunliffe. Well, Friends of Chamber Music, I am proud to tell you, is bringing together in the Capital Region the six-time Grammy-winning percussion ensemble, Third Coast Percussion. And they're in the Capital Region this weekend for a very special artistry and artist residency. Welcome, welcome, gentlemen. Can I introduce you? I know David Skidmore. Hello
Hi.
and welcome. And
Thanks for
Robert
having us.
Dillon. Hi.
Hello, thank you.
And Peter Martin. And Sean Connors is going to be with us, shortly. But there'll be three opportunities to experience this amazing music making, this incredible ensemble. You're a percussion ensemble, which is quite unique, I believe. And tell me, how did this all get formed? How did you all met at university and said, gee, I guess we're all playing drums, let's work together? How did that happen?
Well, it's exactly what you said. The four of us, we're studying music at Northwestern University near Chicago, where we're currently based. And there's a wonderful music school there and a really wonderful percussion program. And there just weren't a lot of professional percussion ensembles. So we decided that we wanted to change that.
Was music always something that you wanted to do, even as a child? How did you get introduced to the world of music?
Yeah, we all, I think we all came at it from different angles. I know some of the other guys began playing piano when they were very young. I started in my school band program when I was in elementary school and started with percussion. And I think all of us, went through some sort of a program like that at some point as well. So we all, I think, had slightly different entry points, but something about drums in particular maybe appealed to us. And as we got closer to college age, I think the sort of world of percussion expanded for us, and we discovered all the immense possibilities and all the different instruments that are part of that.
Well, percussion is such an interesting form of music. I think it's probably what the original kind of means of musical expression. So it's evolved incredibly. How did you decide that this was something you wanted to use? I mean, I don't believe that there's that many classical pieces that are all percussion, is there?
Yeah, it's a pretty young art form in terms of, the Western classical tradition. Some of our earliest repertoire comes from the late 30s and early 40s, 1930s. For percussionists, there weren't really a lot of opportunities, or at least in terms of standard types of chamber ensembles. And because of that, I think over the past couple of decades, we just started banding together and making our own thing. And so percussion ensemble is something that's very, very important and a big part of really any percussionist training when they go into conservatory or university. And but I think for us in particular, the place that we were at studying, where we met each other, was Northwestern University, which is just outside of Chicago. We were all there, and we had a really amazing mentor there. His name is Michael Burritt, and teaching, the way that he taught or focused on teaching percussion really was primarily through solo and chamber music for percussion. It was sort of one of the unique aspects of his teaching. So percussion ensemble ended up being a really big part of our training, at that particular institution. And we really loved it, and really loved playing with each other, and realized that there were no other models out there in the professional world, at least, So we saw that as an opportunity to try to create that opportunity, for ourselves. That
You
was
see,
about 20 years ago at this point.
I was going to say it's 20 years it was at Northwestern, right? But
Yeah.
around that time, there was a lot of attention played to like inner city musicians that would, just play on a trash can or pick up a couple of pans and bang them together and ending up to be some kind of a statement. What makes percussion sort of accessible to a lot of people doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a proper instrument.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the amazing things about we've always loved about what we do, is that there's maybe more entry points for performers and for audience members than there are for some other instruments. I was talking to a friend yesterday who has a 5-year-old who's learning to play the violin, and she's been working on it for a year and just finally made a sound that didn't make her parent want to run out of the room. But if we hand a drumstick to anyone who comes to any of our shows and point them in the direction of one of our instruments, they'll make a sound, they'll be able to make a sound on that instrument. Of course, there's so much complexity and artistry that can go into it beyond that, but the percussion just speaks to people. And you mentioned this earlier, percussion is new for classical music, but it's one of the oldest forms of human expression. And so the music that we play is this really interesting mix-up of some of the most exciting composers and music creators that are working today, working on some of the instruments that are the oldest and most sort of tied to our innate need to express ourselves.
Well, I was going to bring that up because I'm thinking now technology is not necessarily so hands-on with music. Now we have electronic music, and to me, there seems to be a disconnect between the instrument or the thing that's actually creating the sound and the control of that. Do you find using modern technology or engineering music a challenge, or do you find it an addition? I know that you've done some work with Lynn, who's well known as an electronic music maker, but
yeah, I view it more as like an expansion of the possibilities that are out there in music. And I think all of us would probably agree that we do come from a background of playing live, performed, like instruments, but all these electronic elements that we can now, sort of combine or infuse into our art form, I think really only enhances, it just becomes just another source of expression or source for expression, I guess I would say. And the project with Lynn was actually very unique because she is a music creator that does create everything electronically. That's what her voice is. But that was actually a really unique collaboration, in that the ultimate end goal of that collaboration with Lynn was to create music that was going to be performed live by us, on a stage with real instruments. So in that, the process was that she was creating a lot of the music electronically on her computer, and she would send us recordings. Sometimes the recordings were just small bits and pieces of the piece, what we would call stems, or just separate tracks of the music. And we would take that information, and sometimes we would just learn it by rote. Sometimes we would transcribe it on a page, and we'd figure out how to arrange it onto different percussion instruments. And some of them were easy to do, when you get a sound sample that is an electronic drum or a drum, that's easy to replicate. And then other sounds that you can find in the electronic world are just so different. And that actually became a really fun challenge, and really inspiring challenge, because we had to come up with unique ways to replicate some of these different sound worlds that she was creating on her own acoustic instruments.
So she was taking an acoustical sound, recorded, mechanically arranged sound, and you then interpret that into something tangible, like a stick or a box or a bell or a tin or something.
Yes, sometimes they were sounds that she would actually sample from our own studio. She would come to our studio in Chicago and be like, "Oh, I really like that bell sound," or "Oh, I really like that drum sound," or "that other effects that you have. I'm going to sample it. I'm going to use it and how I create it." But sometimes they were just purely electronic sounds or electronic versions of sounds that she was using. So she would be using an electronic version of a marimba sound. But other times they were sounds that just don't exist in the natural acoustic world. It's sort of difficult to describe, but easy to recognize when you hear it. Just stuff that can only be created on via musical synthesis. And then we just had to find a creative way to replicate that sound on an acoustic instrument, which really forced us to figure out ways to augment some of the acoustic instruments that we have to make them sound, like that really foreign sound.
It sounds amazing. I mean, the sound I hear is amazing when you create it. You're performing that when, Friday? Or you're performing that particular piece with Jay
Yeah,
Lynn's piece?
I think that is I think that's part of Saturday's concert that we'll be playing.
This
We'll be
Saturday?
playing some of it on Friday, but most of it on Saturday. Most of that suite of pieces that she wrote for us called Perspective.
Was that the Pulitzer Prize nominee?
It is, yeah. We were just blown away when we got the news a few months back that Jalen's piece "Perspective" that she wrote for us was one of the finalists for the Pulitzer Prize in music, which is really remarkable. She's a very a really unique artist and someone who we just believe so much in the way that she's creating and the art that she's creating. But she's also I think it's not necessarily typical of what has been recognized by the Pulitzer in the past, and so it's just great to see this sort of collaborative project and this sort of art recognized in that way. It's really
She's from
exhilarating.
Chicago too, isn't she?
Just outside of Chicago, she grew up in Gary, Indiana.
So you guys are all Chicago. Were you all, I mean, Chicago is such a huge music center. Is that what gravitated you to stay in Chicago?
I mean, I think Northwestern University was sort of what got us there initially in the first place, but we've definitely found it to be fertile ground for the arts and a great place with some community support and a large population that has a lot of different artistic interests and just a lot of audiences that you can build on. And it's very centrally located and a nice hub to be able to travel around the country as well. But we've built a really wonderful fan base and community of artists that we're honored to be a part of in Chicago as well.
Brilliant. Hello, Sean. Are you with us?
I am. I'm so sorry. My technology is failing me. I'm doing my best. The Health Honors Reward Network is not everything it could be.
That's okay. We understand. That's why we still use drums and blocks of wood to communicate sometimes.
Yes, a very physical way of communicating. Yeah.
But you do a lot of work with other artists, with architects and engineers and other things that help stimulate the arts. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that? That sounds fascinating to me. An architect?
I think one of the best things about being a full-time chamber musician who is in a group that is dedicated to exploring connections with other art forms is that we are open and thirsty and constantly hunting for connections that would not at first glance be immediately drawn. So, for example, you mentioned architects. So David wrote an entire concert-length piece inspired by the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. And it's a piece that Third Coast has been playing for about 10 years now. There's connections that we've made with computer engineers in the realm of both concert performance and pedagogy, in which we have identified the STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, and math, as of course vital to society, but also the creative element of art inserted in there. So we like to call it STEAM. And we've created a STEAM education curriculum that we have brought to audiences around the country. We have also, as Peter was talking about before, the amount of musical influences is limitless for us in terms of, since we're percussionists. So we're constantly looking to world-class collaborators for inspiration and to push us. And that's part of what we'll bring to the concert in Albany on Saturday, but also part of what our whole mission is and what we're going to bring to this upcoming season and seasons beyond.
Well, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you. I know that, you probably have a lot of influence from other countries and other cultures as well, which
Yeah.
I think, well, percussion is an international sound. So
Yeah.
that made huge influences on you as well, on how you present your work and how you develop it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think to what Sean was talking about a minute ago, I think all of these collaborations and influences have kept things very fresh for us as an ensemble for almost 20 years now. And I think as an ensemble that is pretty unique, especially in the scope of the classical music world, it's sort of our greatest strength and our greatest challenge, I think, is that people never know what to expect from a percussion quartet. And so on the one hand, that means we have to do a lot of work to get people in and establish relationships and build a name and have people try to communicate to people what the concert experience is going to be. But also we're not sort of pigeonholed in any one thing. And so we can constantly be exploring different aesthetic directions, different sort of connections with a variety of different musical genres, both genres that originated in America and that we grew up with, and as well as musical genres from cultures all around the world that often have their own percussion instruments that are part of that tradition and are rich and profound and long-standing traditions of their own that we can also learn a bit about and find common ground and create something really special with a collaborator that's coming from a very different place, but we have some sort of a common overlap through this percussion universe. And so there's always something new to discover, and every concert, every sort of thing can be something that helps us continue to grow and that brings fresh experiences to audience as well.
Well, I know that you, I don't know, I'm saying, I'm quite sure that you're really audience friendly. It's not something that we expect to just sit and be quiet. I mean, you have to get us active, if I'm correct. I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
how do you get us engaged?
well,
Shouts and clappings are encouraged.
yes, exactly. Yeah. Everyone can clap and shout along if they want to. I mean, we come from a classical music tradition, even though we're coming at it from a place that's different than some other classical musicians. So I think our concerts don't feel radically unfamiliar to people who go to see other chamber music. But we're also aware that, we're playing music that's often been written in the last few months or the last few years. And so it might be the first time or maybe the second time that anyone's ever heard the music that we're playing. And we love that. And our performance style and the way that we communicate from stage takes that into account. We love introducing the pieces that we play from stage. We love talking about what we like about them. We don't find it super interesting to go into an in-depth theoretical analysis of any sort of aspect of the piece, but we love saying what we like about the piece and what we're thinking about while we're playing it, and giving some sort of insight and further entry point for an audience to just be able to get the most out of hearing this incredible music that we get to play.
What I like so much about it is that it's so physical and it's so watchable. It's just great to watch the energy. It's great to see how you communicate with one another and what happens. It's invigorating. It's lovely to be there. What instruments do you don't really have all together instruments? You have pieces of wood and blocks of stones and shells and all sorts of, how many instruments do you bring with you when you come to a concert?
Hundreds of different things, anything that can make a sound can be a percussion instrument. That's what we like to say. And because percussion is so vast, that means that all the different sounds and all the different colors can be so eclectic. So every single show we do, we try to add as much color and much variety as possible. And sometimes those are really exotic instruments that you have to travel across the world to try to gather up, and sometimes they are just a piece of U channeling or some other type of thing that you get at a Home Depot on a weekend. So
Well, since I've known that you were coming in, I've been like so conscious of sound. And I was just lighting a candle the other day with a match on a matchbox, and I went, oh my goodness, there's a new sound. We have to use this somehow.
That's one of
For a
the beautiful
time,
things percussion
yeah.
has to offer is that it sort of draws your ear to all these different sounds that are around us, and it can help you sort of appreciate the music in the everyday. It's a wonderful thing.
I think that I mean, borrowing from John Cage, one of the great early percussion composers, he questioned everything and basically expanded the definition of music to any sound that you're listening to. It's another one of the cool things about percussion is that it does invite people to listen to the world around them all the time and to enjoy the sounds around them all the time, not just when brilliant violinists or cellists or viola players or percussionists or clarinet players or whoever are performing for you, but when you're walking down the street.
I remember once recording the sounds of the Atlantic Ocean up against the shore, and then walking through a field of sunflowers, and the wind would blow, and I would pull out my recorder my tape recorder, just so I could capture that sound. It brings back so many lovely memories, doesn't it? It's like food, it's like taste, it's smells, it's wonderful. Right. Okay. So you've got this weekend coming up, which is really exciting. And I just have this list right in front of me. Of course I do. But you're coming in on Friday night, and you're going to be at
Yes.
the Linda, and you're doing a wonderful program. It's like a community program, right? Here we go. It's a community program, so it's open to the community, and it's a wonderful experience. We get there at 7:00, and we're going to learn as a unit, as a community unit, about percussion. So that's going to have a huge impact, no doubt.
Yes, it's for any listener. So anyone who is curious about music should come to that performance. We're calling it a family concert.
That's
So
it.
it's a perfect opportunity to bring any listener in your family of any age.
Oh, great.
Everyone is welcome.
Now, what are you going to be presenting then? Is it the J. Lynn piece, a piece of that? Yeah.
Yes, and we'll also be playing music that we've commissioned from other friends of ours. We'll be playing our Think Outside the Drum show, which talks about the basic building blocks of music.
It sounds wonderful. Then on Saturday at 7:30, you're doing you'll have a pre-concert discussion, and that's again at the Linda in London, in Albany. That's called Perspectives. Now that's the one, a more complete piece from Jalen and you, right?
Yeah, we'll be performing Jalen's piece Perspective, Danny Elfman's percussion quartet, which was composed for us, Peter's arrangement of Metamorphosis #1 by Philip Glass, who's a composer we've had a long association with, The Hero by Clarissa Sada, another wonderful Chicago-based composer, and finally Death Wish by Gemma Peacock, which is off of our recent Grammy-nominated album.
Brilliant. That sounds great. So that's at 7:30. And then Sunday, this one is going to be amazing as well. It's Terry Riley in C. So it's a free interactive workshop at Washington Park in Albany at the Lake House. And there's a note here. It says, bring your instrument and a stand. What's that going to be like?
So we're going to be presenting an iconic piece of American music, this piece called In C by Terry Riley, who is a monumental composer of the 20th century in American music. And this is an opportunity for folks in the community to come learn about the piece, perform the piece. We'll be talking about different ways of interpreting it. We're going to play the piece a couple times together. It's going to be really fun. It's a very low pressure, very welcoming environment to connect with one of the kind of monoliths of American music in the last century. So it'll be a really fun opportunity that's happening right here in the capital region.
It's so great. That's so great. So what when you select these composers or the work that you're going to do, how do you go about selecting what you want to present at any particular time? Does it matter what your audience is like, or do you seek to entice them or introduce them to new work?
Sure. We're constantly, these days, the bulk of the repertoire that we're touring or performing is repertoire that we've had a hand in the development.
Oh,
And so
great.
that might be a piece that we've written or arranged, and certainly a lot of music that we're commissioning from other music creators to create for us. So there is, a handful of historical pieces that we continue to perform. Terry Riley's in C is a perfect example of that, just as Sean was saying, an iconic piece. It's also just an example of a piece, the type of piece that we really love, which is a sort of a communal piece, or a piece that can be not only enjoyed by everyone, but actually can involve everyone to participate in. And that, the participation in music making or communal music making is just one of these things that I think all of us find just really, really important and really satisfying. As an artist and as a musician.
It would be enjoyable. So what do you do when you're not playing music? Do you have some other wonderful things that help you to make it through the rough days or something? Or...
I listen to a lot of music when I'm not playing music. Music usually satisfies me through all types of days, the rough days, the good days, everything.
It's the doctor's orders for everything, right? Is listen to music. That's great. Okay, so none of you are secret painters or sculptors or motorcycle riders or,
I would say that
trapezers.
Rob has been doing really well recently because we are on the road so much as a unit, and we're on the road about half the year. Rob has been doing really well, encouraging all of us to get out into nature. So just, for example, in the next 2 days, I'm 100% going to walk along the Hudson, kind of a no-brainer. And that is a source of inspiration wherever we go, to get out into the nature of the community where we are and kind of feel the earth and the setting where we are, and we get to know people that way too. So that's one of the joys of traveling. That's a real privilege.
Oh, it's great. And then there's so many, just to let you know, there's so many like little hidden nature trails in the Albany and Capital region. It's just wonderful. Today I found my little trail not far from here. I mean, just
Great.
next to a little waterfall in the middle of
yeah.
Troy,
Amazing.
waterfall.
That's
And
great. Yeah, we
yeah.
don't have a lot of waterfalls in Chicago, so it's it's a very flat city.
Chicago.
So it's great. Yeah, it's always good to discover a little hidden nook of nature when we're on tour somewhere. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I also went to school in Chicago, so I have very fond memories of it. And the music there at any time has always been great, so it's been fun. What's it like in different audiences? You've traveled all over the world. You've been working for 20 years, traveling worldwide, all over the United States. What do you find interesting or fascinating or stimulating about an audience? You entertaining us or embracing us? How do you get a reaction from an audience? Do you feel that that's part of when you perform?
Yeah, that's always a fascinating thing to experience in every place we go. I think, every audience, it's not just necessarily geographic or according to any other specific like age or whatever, but every audience is just a little different. Sometimes we're playing a show and you immediately feel a really energized feedback from people, sometimes even a little wild feedback from people. And then sometimes we're playing a show and it feels like everyone is very restrained and calm, but then we get to the end of the show and everyone erupts, and that's just the energy comes out in different ways. I think we all appreciate, I think we mentioned earlier in a lot of our concerts, including the concerts we'll be doing in Albany this week, we do speak from the stage a lot during the shows, and that feels like a nice moment to be able to have like a little bit more direct connection with an audience, sort of look people in the eye a little bit more and see kind of what the energy is that's coming back from the room between pieces and how people are engaging with it. But it is always fascinating to be in different places and feel that energy in different ways, and when there's opportunities just to chat with folks or meet people after a concert. It's always so interesting, the things and the associations people make. I think that's one of the great things about our music is people will come and they'll say, you know, this reminded me of this, or made me think about this, and there can be wildly different things that we've never, I think, thought about ourselves.
So it's a continually growing, continually moving. So wonderful. Okay, so all right. So do you think there's enough music here in the United States? Are we funding enough arts? How can we encourage it? Just by you guys coming in and as an example of, you know, playing in the park for us for an afternoon.
Anyone who's listening right now has gone to a concert and they really loved it. They should support whatever organization put it on, or whatever artist was performing. And in many cases, it's pretty easy to do. You go to the website of wherever you saw that concert. In the case of what we're talking about, go to Friends of Chamber Music Troy and support Friends of Chamber Music Troy, or support Third Coast Percussion, who's the featured artist this week. Maybe a simple answer, but
no, it's great. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, if you were coming in, I don't know if I would have sat down and listened to as much as I had. I remember we listened to Stomp back in, you know, 100 years ago, and then there's the, you know, but to have you actually come and come to our city and show us something new that we haven't seen before. It's stimulating. It's wonderful. Appreciate it.
We appreciate that. And also, I think everyone should be an advocate for arts in their schools. I think arts education is something that is definitely not evenly, does not have universal access in our country. It's very different in different places, and it can be transformative for a child. Even if they are never pursuing music professionally or independently after they're done, the difference that it can make in their lives and the things they can do to their community and the way that they bond with other students is just so essential. And I think it doesn't always get the value and the support that it deserves, that level.
Thank you. I appreciate what you just said. I couldn't agree more. So what would you suggest if there was a young person who was interested in following his life as a musician? I know it's not an easy route, but what advice would you give them?
I would probably tell them that if there's something that they love doing, like music, that they should dedicate as much time to it as they like, and that they should know that the more time they dedicate to it, the more that they'll get out of it. And that's a hard thing for young people, I think, to hear and understand, because they haven't that you can't see the results for many years. But I think it's the love of what you do that keeps you coming back. And so we've all had the opportunity to teach, all four of us, wide variety of ages, from I think kindergarten through graduate level. And I'll speak for myself in saying that the students that are most inspiring to me aren't always the most naturally gifted. They're the ones that work the hardest. And it's the love of doing it that sustains you, and allows you to do great things. So yeah, I would always try and encourage young people I met who love what they do and love art to just do as much of it as they possibly can. Makes the world a better place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's great. Okay, so what can I say? I can say what's in the future for you. How much more are you touring, or are you taking some time off? Where are you going from here?
We are nearing the end of this concert season, but we've got a few more fun projects coming up. A week from tomorrow, we'll play the last show, or actually not the last show, but the second to last show of our Chicago concert season, which will be a really special one. We're collaborating with Jesse Montgomery, who just won the Grammy Award for Best Classical Composition, and is our hometown orchestra's composer in residence. She's writing us a new work. And then we've got some more fun touring this summer. We're going to the Grand Tetons, and we're going to Rockport, Massachusetts, and some other fun places. And then next season, we begin celebrating our 20th anniversary. So there'll be all kinds of fun highlights. We'll have our return to Carnegie Hall and to the Philharmonie de Paris. We'll have our debut performances in Sao Paulo and a return to Bogota, Colombia. Plus a bunch of touring with some really exciting and inspiring artists. So lots of fun music coming from Third Coast Percussion.
Well, at least you'll get to the Grand Tetons, Robert. You can get them up on the mountains, right?
Oh yeah, I've already got my campground reserved. Got my plans.
Good for you. Do you have any more recordings? I know you've got what, 17 just recordings out? Plus
We actually,
more.
yeah, we have over 30 recordings that feature Third Coast Percussion. We have 19 feature albums, and we're on an additional 14. And we have 4 albums coming out in the next 12 months.
You're not busy, are you? No.
And more, actually, even more than that, recorded music coming out on our YouTube channel. So anyone who comes to the concert or comes to know our organization is hungry for more, our YouTube channel is a great place to go, because we have hours and hours of great percussion music up there.
I saw a few myself. I went on YouTube and listened to them. But you have an app? Did you develop some kind of an app where we could make our own music?
We have a few iPhone apps that we created in collaboration with a great software engineer who's an old friend of mine who's himself a percussionist. We played in youth orchestra together. Who's a professional software developer now, but he created a few apps for us over the years, each focused on music of a different composer that we were working with, or whose music we were playing. So the most recent one, which I would recommend people check out, features the music of Steve Reich, who's a composer whose music we play a lot. And if you just search in the App Store for Third Coast Percussion, Steve Reich, it'll come up. And it sort of allows you to explore sort of different compositional techniques that are part of Steve Reich's music, and sort of create your own little musical snippets using these things. It's very visually engaging, a very cool interface, and a lot of fun to play around with.
Well, that sounds like, I think it might get my hands on that, huh?
Andrea, we do have a question that came in. Elfman's Percussion Quartet was written for Third Coast Percussion to premiere at Philip Glass's Days and Nights Festival in California. How did you meet Danny, and was this your first collaboration with him?
You know, we've been fans of Danny Elfman's music for a while, and his music is just kind of part of our culture, whether you know him by name or not. So we've been fans of his music for a while. We had an opportunity to play this festival, which is Festival by Philip Glass, and Philip had a little bit before that had written a piece for us, was really excited about it, really excited about that process. And for this festival, he's like, "Hey, I want you to play the piece that I wrote for you." And we're like, "Great." And he's like, "Oh, and I would love it if you could play another piece that somebody else would write for you." And we're like, "Okay, well, who's it gonna be? We got to work this out." And he's like, "Well, I was thinking I'd ask my friend Danny Elfman." And we're like, "Yes." So it was one of those very, very few instances in life where you have this amazing opportunity that really comes about through a variety of different points of intersection, in your life. But it was a wonderful opportunity. So we got to meet Danny, work with him. He's an incredibly prolific composer and a really quick composer. He wrote the piece very, very quickly while he was also working on, 3 major films. And when you hear the piece, and we'll be playing it on Saturday night, we also have a recording of it. It's Danny Elfman's percussion quartet. But when you hear that piece, it sounds like Danny Elfman. If you are familiar with any of his music, you can recognize it immediately. Hear all this stuff from Tim Burton. You even hear a bunch of kind of wacky stuff that you might hear in the Simpsons theme song, if you're familiar with that too. These crazy xylophone licks and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just was wonderful. And since that project, we've got to know him, even more. We were actually, when we were on tour in California just a couple weeks ago, we went to Danny Elfman's studio, got to see that for the first time. And he has an amazing collection of percussion instruments himself, which was really, really fun to see. And yeah, like I said, that guy is incredibly creative, incredibly prolific, and he's going to continue to make some really amazing music. And it was just an honor that we were able to be one part of that amazing output.
That's brilliant. And now I'm really looking forward to that as well. Thank you. Well, I want to just remind everyone that they're going to be here Friday, April 26th at 7 o'clock with their program, Think Outside the Drum. And it's free. It's a community and family concert. It's at the Linda. Saturday, the 27th at 7:30, Perspectives concert. And that's a concert discussion will start at 6:45, so you can have a concert talk prior to the 7:30 performance, again at the Linda. And on Sunday, Terry Riley NC on the 28th at 3 o'clock, Washington Park Lake House. So that'll be wonderful, and that's open to the public, and we're all looking forward to that. So for more information, you go to friendsofchambermusic.org. And for social media, Third Coast Percussion is the gentleman who we have had as a guest right now, which is David Skidmore, Robert Dillon, Peter Martin, and Sean Connors. Thank you so much for this and for this coming weekend. We're so looking forward to it.
So
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
See you this
See you
week.
later.
Take care.
Okay, toodles, bye.